Masters Week in Augusta, the center of the sporting world. But have you ever wondered, why here? Why us? And why now? Well, it's an old story. Several old stories. Most of us know the story of Augusta and golf. We know about Bobby Jones and Clifford Roberts coming to town. We know about them creating the Augusta National Golf Club, and we know about them starting the Masters tournament. But have you ever wondered who were the first people to ever play golf in Augusta? You might think that nobody knows, but you would be wrong. This is Augusta, a city proud of its history, and when that question was asked half a century ago, someone had the answer. His name was Joseph B. Cumming, and his family is one of our town's oldest. In the 1890s, 4 men showed up one day on the sweeping lawn of Jane Cumming Verdry's home at what is now 945 Millage Road. They were neighbors, dropping by to socialize, and they wanted to take advantage of the grounds to try out this new game called golf. The names of that first foursome: Dr. William H. Harrison Jr., his brother Morley, Henry H. Cumming, and Louis Berkmans. It was a group that quickly became enthusiastic about the sport. They were the core of those who organized the Augusta Country Club, with its first 9-hole course on the east side of Millage Road, about a half a mile from that first recorded demonstration. At the beginning of the previous century, land was purchased from Henry Cumming on the other side of Millage, and 2 18-hole courses were constructed, the Lake Course and the Hill Course. Such courses attracted many, including a young Atlantan named Bobby Jones, who often came to town to play. Banner headlines, for example, proclaimed his 1924 match with the British, French, and Southern amateur champs at the Augusta Country Club. Of course, one of the men in that first foursome was Louis Berkmans. What happened to him? Well, his family owned an old plant nursery out on Washington Road, and they sold it for a golf course, and you know the rest of that story. Why do people come to Augusta every April? Well, the weather, and the weather has more to do with it than you might think. The weather can change history. Take the Great Miami Hurricane of 1926. Not only did it provide a nickname for University of Miami athletic teams, but it left a lasting impact on the Southeast and Augusta. That began the year before, when financier J. Perry Stoltz came to our town. Stoltz, as most anyone in the 1920s could tell you, was the wealthy investor behind Miami's then famous Fleetwood Hotel. The Fleetwood symbolized the growing American tourism industry in those spendthrift pre-Depression days. Stoltz thought he would recapture his success of the Miami Fleetwood with another Fleetwood, this one in Augusta, which had a long history of tourism. Stoltz planned his hotel on a large tract outside town and used as his construction headquarters the property's 1850s farmhouse, which he planned to tear down when the project was complete. The proposed hotel's foundations were staked out, and in 1926, Stoltz manned a shovel for the ceremonial groundbreaking. But as 1926 progressed, more delays occurred. A rail line had to be built out to the property to deliver steel. Then, in September, a hurricane of historic proportions hit Miami, 543 miles away. The 1926 storm was one for the ages. We don't hear much about it almost 90 years later, but its impact was devastating for much of the region. It leveled most of Miami and killed more than 300 people. Many historians say it provoked the beginnings of the Great Depression in the Southeast. It destroyed much of Miami's burgeoning tourism industry and ruined many of those who had invested heavily in it. Commodore Stoltz was among them. His Augusta project was abandoned, and that old farmhouse that he was going to tear down as soon as it was finished, it's still standing. You know it today as one of the most photographed images in Augusta, the Augusta National Clubhouse. Maybe a national golf club would be somewhere else. Maybe the Masters tournament would be held elsewhere. And maybe Augustans would be spending their Aprils watching the world's best golf on their televisions and not in person. But we don't, and we have a hurricane to thank for it. But it wouldn't be here today if a Florida developer had gone through with his original plan to put a hotel on the site and tear it down. So let's review. Why do people come every April? We're here because that town enjoyed mild winter climate, and people in the north enjoyed coming down here to experience that climate. We're here because around the turn of the previous century, they brought the game of golf with them, and they enjoyed it, and we enjoyed it. And we started playing golf. We started having golf courses and golf tournaments. And at one of those tournaments, in 1930, a young Atlantan named Bobby Jones, on this very course, won the Southeastern Open, and he was treated well, and he remembered it. A few years later, he talks his friend Clifford Roberts into coming back to Augusta. They created their own golf club. They had a golf tournament. What better way to promote the club than a tournament in the spring? Now, the first Masters tournament was played in March. It was a little chilly. If you look at pictures of those old events, you'll see that a lot of them are wearing overcoats. They switched to April the next year, and what happened? They hit the timing just right on the blossoms and the flowers. We're here because in the tournament's second year, a former caddy named Sarrazin hit a 4-wood shot that they still talk about 70 years later. And the golf writers wrote about it, and people wanted to see it happen again. Every generation has its Sarrazins and its Hogans and its Sneeds. Every generation has its Kaisers and its Walls and its Brewers and its Mises. Young men who will pick one weekend in April to play the game of a lifetime. And we're here because we want to see if that will happen again. It all fits. History and weather, sportsmanship and tradition. Excellence in full bloom every April.